coffee hunter. A coffee.
Weird Realities Network presents Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales, where we pull up a log, roast a marshmallow, and settle in as these two blondes talk spooky tales, urban legends, and classic horror icons. Exciting guests, perky blondes, and sinister tales makes this podcast as good as a double stack s'more. So let's join Bethany and Crystal as they gather around the campfire in Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales. Crystal and I, we are so happy and excited to announce our guest host today, Jonathan Maberry, a New York Times bestseller and Bram Stoker Award-Winner, anthology editor, comic book writer, exec. I'm like reading through the list. I can't get through all of this. There is so much. It's insane. But thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it's funny because your introduction mentioned s'mores, something I have never once had.
Really?
I know. People always are shocked, and I have yet to have a s'more. So I did, for my 66th birthday, I'm going to have a s'more.
There
Is
you
it
go.
just because you never went camping or like?
I've been camping plenty of times. I was a marshmallow guy, burning marshmallow guy. But I never went camping with more family, so not as much fun.
I mean, yeah, we like s'mores. Is it just the chocolate that you haven't had with it, or just like the marshmallow you only had?
Oh, the combination of chocolate, marshmallow, and graham cracker together. I never had. I've had all separately quite a few times, but never actually an official s'more. I feel like I join the rest of the real world and s'more out on my birthday.
Yeah, I'm not even a chocolate person, and I've had a s'more, so I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
Oh gosh.
But I do usually just go for burning my marshmallows completely.
it's the only
There
way.
is something about a burnt marshmallow that just tastes delicious, and you got to peel it off, and then you got to eat the burnt crispy parts.
Eat the crusted black carcinogens all over it. Yeah, I mean, actually love the taste of those. So, like we're all savages.
Gotta get some good carcinogens in.
It's got to be to a golden crisp.
Yeah, at least you do at least one artistic marshmallow per camp adventure, but then you just got to burn them. Especially if beer's involved, you got to just start burning them.
Got to get the Instagram pic, right? Well, Jonathan, thank you for joining us. I don't even know where to start with you because you have such an extensive career and background so here's where I'm going to start actually, because I actually got this book. It's The Ghost Road Blues.
My first novel.
Yes, I love it so far. I mean, it's got everything that I love. It's got Halloween. It has horror. It has like haystack rides and everything and ritual sacrifice. Like, yeah,
what's not to love, honestly? Like,
exactly.
That book was born in a cornfield. Actually, I used to. When I grew up in Philadelphia, and in the suburbs of Philadelphia, the suburbs used to be farmland. Now it's all infill, urban sprawl. But there is a town called New Hope, Pennsylvania, and it is known as the most haunted town in America. Or at least it used to be. Now I think Savannah is, but for years it was the most haunted town in America. And legends going back to Lenape indigenous peoples who lived there even before the colonists, and they thought it was haunted. So the area has that history. And they have these vast cornfields. And my buddies, when we were in high school, we'd drive out there, go into the middle of the cornfield at night where there was no lights, nothing. I'm not saying we drank as teenagers. I would never say that. But we liquefied ourselves, told each other. We're tough inner city kids. So we're telling each other ghost stories to try to scare one another. And I seem to be able to scare the other guys a little more than they were able to scare me. And I started thinking about a town like that, but I didn't get around to writing it until I was in my 40s. And I came to it indirectly. When I went to college, I went to college for journalism. I was on a journalism scholarship. I wanted to be that intrepid reporter that broke the big story and took down the corrupt whatever. I graduated right after Watergate, so I wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein combined. Got to college, didn't do that. Went up actually writing magazine features, and then college textbooks, and then mass market nonfiction books. And that's where the link to the ghost, the spooky stuff happened. I had a 4-book deal with a small press, and I did 3 martial arts books for them because I've been doing martial arts since I was 5. And I said for the 4th book, I want to go like off the reservation a little bit. I want to do a book on folklore, and I want to do a book on on supernatural predators around the world and throughout history, monsters, cryptids, urban legends, all of that. And my publisher was looking at me with a half smile, waiting for the punchline of what he thought was a joke. And when he realized I was serious, he agreed, but asked me to do it under a pen name because he thought my martial arts readers would think I'd gone a little batty. And I just got inducted into a martial arts hall of fame, so he was really afraid it would ruin my reputation. That book, which was written under a pen name, Shane MacDougall. Shane's Scottish for John, and MacDougall is one of the Scottish clans I belong to. Nice big fat book. It wound up outselling the martial arts books like 30-1, collectively 30-1. And I was off and running in terms of loving spooky stuff. And there's also a backstory to that. But after I had written the book, I wanted to find novels that had folkloric versions of vampires and werewolves and so on, and couldn't find any. This is back in around 2000, I guess I started edging toward the novel thing. And I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find it. My wife said, just stop bitching about it and write the damn thing. So I did. I wrote a novel basically to get it out of my head so I can go back to what I thought was serious stuff, which is writing nonfiction articles. And then I fell in love with fiction and the writing of it. And I wrote Ghost Road Blues. It took me 3.5 years, fell in love with the whole process of writing, had to teach myself how to write fiction because, like I said, I went to school for journalism, not the same skill set. And I wrote the nonfiction book and the novel were both books I thought my grandmother would have liked. If you can imagine Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter as an old lady, my grandmother, she believed in everything. And she was born on Halloween, which makes her so much cooler.
Nice.
The first dog I ever had was a dog that was born on Halloween. She only had pets that were born on Halloween. And it was a Doberman Mastiff mix and named Spooker, Halloween name. And I loved my grandmother to pieces. And so I wrote books I thought she would appreciate. And that launched my fiction career. And Ghost Road Blues is my first book, came out in 2006. I am writing my 51st now.
That's amazing. And it's, I like that you have, I guess, multiple books that talk about supernatural creatures and cryptids. Because I have this one and I use it all the time preparing for this show. All the time.
This is a series I did for Citadel Press. The Vampire Universe was the first, and it was a kind of a condensed version of the book I did before under the pen name. Then Cryptopedia, which is kind of like an encyclopedia of just terms dealing with what my grandmother called the larger world. They Bite which one did you have? Did you have They Bite?
They Bite. Mm-hmm.
They Bite. Okay, that one. And then Wanted Undead or Alive was the last one. But I also, in the middle of it, I wrote a nonfiction book. It's actually my most popular nonfiction book on zombies, but it's what would happen if zombies were real, where I interviewed hundreds of experts in the real world about how the military, the press, the clergy, the whatever, would deal with the zombies if they were a thing. And it's because of this that I became friends with George Romero.
Nice.
He read the book, he loved it. And
one serious question for you.
Yeah.
How much do you cover the Chupacabra?
I have a couple. Probably in every one of the nonfiction books, Chupacabra's mentioned. A lot of other cryptids, Champy, Bigfoot, of course. My personal favorite, the Jersey Devil. We'll be doing a Jersey Devil novel soon. Lots and lots and lots of cryptids are in that book. So yes, and Chupacabra, of course, because it's cool. And I hate the version of it had in the X-Files because it wasn't the Chupacabra. No. Anymore, and the Jersey Devil episode was the Jersey Devil. It was basically naked cannibals, which is not quite a legend. But I love those weird monsters.
Well, Rikki kind of brought it up probably because the Chupacabra is like our unofficial mascot of our show. It's brought up in every single episode. But leading into that, I guess, would lead us into the Yardley Yeti, which you're partly responsible for. And when I looked up pictures and stuff, that looks very similar to the Chupacabra.
Yeah, those photos were taken by my wife, Sarah Jo West. So here's the origin of that. We were at a restaurant in Hope, that same town I was mentioning earlier, came out in the parking lot. We saw this creature that at the angle we saw it, in the distance we saw it, it looked like a cross between a kangaroo, a rat, and a dog. We had no idea what the hell it was. My wife just clicked a bunch of photos because it was unusual, and she always has her camera out. And then we forgot about it. And then I had told one or two of my friends, including one cop friend I knew, about it. And he said, it was his answer. Right forward about a year, and that same cop friend calls me up and says, remember that thing you and your wife took photos of? I said, yeah. And he says, they're calling it the Yardley Yeti. It's in the news. I'm like, first off, it's not a Yeti. A Yeti is a hominid, a man-like creature. He says, yeah, but it's alliterative. Yardley, they saw it in Yardley, so Yardley Yeti. What did the reporter know? And people started seeing it all over. And there's a guy who used to have a news segment on Channel 6, the ABC News in Philly, named Don Pollock. He had this running segment of just a kind of a weird, fun, cool, wacky stories. And he had me on the show, on the news for that. And we started getting, hundreds and hundreds of people saying they saw it. I had a theory of what it was, and I kept trying to tell people it's probably a red fox with mange, which causes hair loss, skin deformations, muscular and skeletal deformations. And as I even had a rare animal expert from one of the local zoos come out and say it's either a red fox or a coyote, young coyote with mange, and people don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe that. They'd rather believe the cryptid. And the part of me that's a practical guy wants to smack him, but the part of me that loves pop culture, I'm like, yeah, it's a monster. Let's rock with that. Let's go. So I'm kind of on the fence with it. I'll take it either way. But I do like the fact that it's become an urban legend now in eastern Pennsylvania. It's sad that it's based on animals with a disease, but there's usually a story behind everything. And a little side note there, my grandmother, who I said believed in everything, she had me read a lot of the folklore as a kid, but she also had me read archaeology, anthropology, and science, because she wanted to see if there was a scientific explanation for as many things as possible, and what couldn't be proved scientifically, that was her proof of the larger world. So she just thought supernatural was something we would eventually include in actual science, a field of study, once they learned how to measure and meter it. But she would have loved the Yardley Yeti.
So she was kind of like the Scully to everyone's Mulder. In terms of
no, she was full Mulder, but with Scully,
Yeah, I think
proof, but kind of almost like the lone gunman. She wanted the scientific proof, had a lot of scientific proof, but still believed in a lot of things. And she was the best.
I think that that makes sense, because if you go through the science and it's okay, so the science we have now doesn't explain it. Maybe it's just new science, or maybe or like you said, it's a larger world. I think
I give you a good example. Yeah, I'll give you a good example of that. In Romania, there are actually no vampire legends in Romania or Transylvania. The people think there are, but there are no vampire legends. There are Strigoi legends, which is a pernicious ghost. And among different regions in the area have different versions of it. But the most common version is it comes into your house. It's a bodiless spirit that comes into your house at night and takes the breath from sleeping people or sleeping children mostly. And so you put a healthy kid to bed at night, and in the morning it's dead. Now, in the 1600s, they didn't have the concept of sudden infant death syndrome. And it was such an impossibility that a healthy child would just die. They couldn't believe that God would kill it. They kill the kid because God's supposed to be love and loves little kids and all that stuff. So there had to be something that was not God, that was some evil. And when they typical of those eras, anytime there was some weird thing happen, people go to the village priest, shaman, whatever, and they would give them charms and potions and teach them prayers, and they would go and do them. And SIDS, almost sudden death syndrome, almost never hits the same family twice. So if they go to church, learn the prayers, buy the talismans, put them up, and no other kids die, in that way, it reinforces their faith that God is protecting the family as long as they adhere to the tenets of the religion. And roll forward into the late 20th century, when they finally started understanding more about sudden infant death syndrome, they realized that so many of the early legends about invisible ghosts are in fact about SIDS. And in fact, the word Nosferatu in Dracula, Bram Stoker translates it as undead. It doesn't mean that. It means plague carrier. It means an invisible spreader of disease. Diseases are also things that a simple villager might not. Not all diseases have visible symptoms. So somebody could die of a disease without showing it, and of course they would think that there has to be something supernatural that killed it. So it is interesting when you kind of decode some of the science. It doesn't actually take away the magic of it for me, because there are still a lot of things that aren't yet explained by science. And I love my grandmother's idea that supernatural is a branch of science waiting to be officially designated as such.
Well, it's kind of like parapsychology, it's like, is it really an official branch of psychology? Maybe not, but there's plenty of people that study that stuff. Like,
there are PhD degree programs in parapsychology, so it is an official branch of science, but unfortunately not a respected one outside of its own small community, which is stupid, because every nation has had their military has worked on ESP programs. Mm-hmm. During the Cold War, us and the Russians were constantly working on that, and we're still working on it. I mean, I know somebody within the military who works with people who claim to be remote viewers, and some of what they do during these sessions is impossible to explain in any way other than they're actually doing what they say they're doing. So so that makes it fun. It's like there is a larger world, and our world is this big, but that's what we can measure. And science, as intrepid as it can be, is often very conservative in their ability to go beyond what they know for sure.
Now, I like when Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking with his friend, I keep forgetting his name, and they'll do little science shorts and such, and they'll come up with all sorts of stuff just to kind of bring it out to the lay people a little bit. Yeah. And one of the ones that they hit that was like, wait a minute, that was kind of cool. Somebody else brought in this theory, and I forgot to look it up, but the theory is that we're looking at ourselves as it wrapped around. So all the idea that the stars and the different galaxies and stuff out there could actually be us that we're looking at. It's just the way it's gone out, kind of warped around, and where it's coming back, and that's what we're viewing, which kind of gives the idea that instead of multiverse, any of those, it could literally just be one, but just over time.
I suppose that's possible. Neil is someone I wouldn't want to get in an argument with about science. I'm also, I've been doing a lot of research on astrophysics and astronomy, and other galaxies are provably extant. Distance, speed of light, and so on. But I love the fact that a lot of these things, as much as we can see those galaxies, and with the Webb telescope and so on, we see them better. We still are doing a lot of guesswork, filling a lot of the blanks with what we know, not what we can prove yet. And that's one of the reasons I wish I could project my consciousness into the future, just see what we will know for sure 100 years from now.
Right.
Because look at what we didn't know 100 years ago. Computers, internet, the space race. There's so much that we have done since then. The genetics and surgical sophistication, all of that was completely beyond the people of 1924. And yet now it's commonplace.
So
Yes.
where do you stand on aliens? Do you think they exist?
I'm a big fan of Drake's equation with aliens. Drake's equation is that mathematical concept, and I forget the exact numbers, but it is so statistically improbable for us to be the only sentient life form. Mm-hmm. Even in a galaxy like the Milky Way, which is a medium-sized galaxy, it has hundreds of billions of stars. Hundreds of billions of stars. And we're a small galaxy. There are galaxies with trillions of stars. And it seems like a lot of wasted space if there's nothing else out there. And we have theories about how life started on Earth. Statistically, if even one of every 100 billion stars in the galaxy, in the universe rather, has sentient life. That's trillions of civilizations. That's that many stars out there. Most people, when they look up in the sky, they don't realize that some of the stars they're seeing are galaxies, or even clusters of galaxies. So yeah, I do believe in alien life. My biggest challenge with it, and it is unfortunately a fairly mundane scientific challenge, is distance. Einsteinian relativity is a hard one to get past unless we can actually fold space and do basically event horizon. If we could do that and not wind up in a hell dimension, we can probably go out there. It's funny. My latest book, which I just got copies of 5 minutes before I logged onto this call, Necrotech, which comes out in May, deals with some of this. I mean, scientists are working on a space station near Jupiter. They're working on a matter teleporter, and the thing goes wrong, and so instead of transmitting a capsule of instruments to the other side of Jupiter, it sends the entire space station to the far side of the galaxy, where they will never be able to come home. And deals with even if they could build a ship that could approach the speed of light, it's 55,000 light years away. They'll never get home.
Oh, that's more the Star Trek. The
Voyager.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, seeing the Wayne Brady's description of Neurotech at one point, which kind of actually immediately think of the Star Trek's Khan and his race of the eugenics wards individuals.
Yeah,
he described it. That's where my mind went.
Actually, Wayne had read 2 of my books back to back, and he got the first part of his endorsement wrong.
Ha! I mean, awesome, dude.
I had a book come out late last year called Sleeper's War, which dealt with us fighting an alien race. They're winning. We create HEs, Homo eximius, which are a forced evolutionary step to create super soldiers.
Okay.
They're so powerful they're just like an unstoppable force, and the enemy sues for peace, and that leads to political troubles, and they wind up putting those guys in cryosleep and wake them up 200 years later. So he was wrong about that part of it. What he was right about was the fact that it is deep space science fiction. We have star pilots, we have alien races, and we have a lot of Lovecraftian creature in there. The conceit of the book is when we go out that far, we find out that creatures like Cthulhu and so on came to Earth because they were afraid of what's out there. And now we're out there.
Right.
But that endorsement of Wayne was unexpected, and I was so happy with it.
I mean, to be fair, he was going on to performance.
He ran from there to get on stage because he was running over the Wayne's a cool cat. I met him weirdly. I have a series called the Joe Ledger Thriller series, which is weird science adventures. There's 13 of them out now. The 14th, I just finished the 14th. Wayne, I had done 2 anthologies where I'd asked friends of mine who are writers to come in and write stories set in that world. And in the most recent one, Joe Ledger and Broadway, I had asked Maurice Broadus if he wanted to write a story, a good buddy of mine, Afrofuturist, which is a genre of science fiction. And he said he would love to do it, but he would like to bring in the guy who turned him on to the Joe Ledger books. And I said, who's that? He said, Wayne Brady. And I'm like, what now? That's Wayne Brady? And yeah, it turns out he's been a huge fan of my books for years. Thanks, weirdly, to Barack Obama. He met Obama at the White House. They talk books. Obama follows me on social media because I put him in my Black Panther comics. And he recommended the Joe Ledger series, and Wayne got hooked. That is it's even weird to say that out loud.
That is nice.
So now is tapping me. That was his first published short story. And he when he gets back when he's done his run on Broadway, he wants to come back and spend a couple of days, with me up at his house so we can pick my brain on how to write a novel.
Cool. So he wants to write a novel.
Yeah, I'm game with that.
Yeah,
he is fast from what I've seen. Especially from Whose Line Is It Anyway? he's just quick on the ball, especially with anything musical. And so you gotta constantly be creative and
I don't think it's going to be difficult for him to become a good selling writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
So
now jumping into V Wars, first off, like, how excited were you to find out that was going to be picked up for a Netflix series? And then how much were you involved with that?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a weird little story. I did V Wars as a series of anthologies originally for IDW Publishing. I wrote a 50,000-word short novel and then broke it up and had other writers come in and write field reports as this plague spread out that turned people into vampires, about 5% of the human population. And IDW had a media arm because they also did Lock and Key and a few other shows. And they asked if they could go out shopping with it. And I'm like, good luck. It took them about 3 years to find a home for it because the version they were pitching was a little too expensive, was a little too global. So finally, Netflix picked it up, and I was getting off an airplane in Atlanta going to Dragon Con, and I got a call from my agent and said, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "No, I'm at baggage carousel picking up my luggage." She said, "Sit down." I sat, and she said, Netflix just picked up V Wars." So I may have shrieked. I've been doing the Snoopy dance. That's also possible. But when the thing went into production, I got up to, I was able to go up to the table read. They invited me up to the table read in Toronto, which was surreal because here's all these actors I have seen in so many shows. Candice McClure from Battlestar Galactica, Ian Somerhalder from Vampire Diaries, Laura Vandervoort from pretty much everything. Supergirl in Smallville, Bitten, and just everything else she's been in, and a bunch of other folks. And they're all sitting there reading scripts with words from my book in it. That is a very surreal experience. Nothing in a person's writing career really prepares you for that. So that was big. And then we were invited to Sudbury in about 5 hours north of Toronto, my wife, son, and I, for the first couple of days of shooting, and which was also surreal. But I was not involved in the writing of the scripts at all. In fact, I wasn't even named as executive producer until about 5 days before the show aired. And it was Ian who went to bat for me to be executive producer. So really, my only involvement in the show, other than having written the source books, the original books, was they asked me to come up with titles for the 10 episodes. I'm like, really? That's it?
The writers are like, we got nothing.
That was tossing me a bone. I mean, it was a milk bone, But it launched at the beginning of COVID, a plague show that launched at the beginning of COVID. Fantastic. So even though we were the number one show in 120 global markets, Netflix canceled us because they were afraid of pandemic backlash. And then, funnily enough, the movie Contagion,
yes,
would become the most watched movie in Netflix history for the entire time COVID was out there. So they should have kept this. So right now, Ian and I and a couple producer friends and a showrunner friend, we are trying to cook up a new version of it that we want to shop to other markets because we got the rights back, and we want to shop it to other markets. And Ian has enough star power to be able to set up meetings everywhere. So fingers crossed on that. It'll be a much, much darker version of it, closer to the books, because Ian was a little unhappy that the screenwriters, the Canadian screenwriters, did what he called a polite version of it. And the book is not polite. It's very edgy. It deals with racism and intolerance and addiction. I mean, the whole story is that's the metaphor underpinning the whole series. And we want to dig into that, especially with the political climate here in America.
Do you feel like with adaptations of books to movies, books to TV shows, just in general, do you feel like television and movie has a tendency to kind of just, like you said, just glaze over a few topics of certain things? Or do you think like they're just scared of doing it? Or
Runner, because you look at the movie adaptations of the Jack Reacher books.
Yeah.
Right? They're terrible. You look at the TV series, it's brilliant. Two completely different sets of writers. And the TV writers were not the big ticket writers that they had for the Tom Cruise movies. but they did a much better version of it. There are some things that have been adapted and have been great. Examples: the Joe Pickett series by C.J. Box, the Justified series, which was based on a short story, one short story, and it ran for 7 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch that are really, really good, and I think the adaptations are getting better now because they found that novels translate well to a season of television, and enough in the novel to follow it. So they're leaning closer into following the book. That said, the showrunner, always wants to put, and the director always wants to put his or her mark on the story by making some changes so that it's uniquely their own rather than just a straight adaptation. And I get it. I don't mind when they make changes for a couple of reasons. One, my version already exists, and the show, good or bad, is going to make people buy more copies of the book. As we found out with V-Wars, people bought a lot of copies of that book when the show came out. My buddy Robert J. Sawyer, he had a show called Flash Forward, and they only had one season of that, but that made his career. So adaptations can be good or bad. Some adaptations, the writers stops being involved. Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman stopped being involved in the show, and it became apparent. George R.R. Martin stopped being involved with Game of Thrones. It became apparent. I mean, that show ended terribly. You take all those seasons, develop one of the strongest, most interesting female characters, and then you turn her evil and have a man kill her. Really? Fucking 21st century, that's what you're going to do? So adaptations can go hot and cold. Now, the difference between any project I do now and V-Wars is now I'm executive producer from the jump. I won't allow them to do it unless I have some creative control. I am not, however, a prima donna who believes every word of mine is precious. Example of this, Alcon Entertainment is adapting my novel Rotten Ruin, which is right now still my biggest selling novel. It's required reading in 8,400 schools around the world. It's in its 20s. The hardcover's in its 26th printing. I forget how many printings the paperback's in, and but it's a 400-page novel and a 90-minute movie. You can't possibly put everything in the book in the movie. They even had to combine certain characters, cut scenes in order to fit. And then again, the screenwriter puts this touch on it. Nowadays, though, I mean, we got the first draft of the script right before the strike, and I read it. I gave notes. My first time giving notes on a script based on my work, and I think the guy's doing a great job with it. I'm waiting for the second draft, probably in about a month, and that's fantastic.
That was actually the first one of your novels that I read was Rotten Ruin. I'm like, oh, movie, yay!
It's one of those things where I didn't expect it to actually be big, because when I wrote that, I wrote it as a novella, originally as a novella, not a novel, for an adult anthology of zombie stories, edited by Christopher Golden, and we didn't expect anything to happen to that other than it just be a novella. And then suddenly it, became a huge hit. It started winning like a ton of awards, and we were all like, wow, that didn't see that coming. What happened is my agent saw the novella and asked if she can take it out shopping as the opening of a YA series. And I'm like, I haven't read YA since I was a kid, so no. And then she said, let me send you some of contemporary YA. And I started reading basically the Scott Westerfeld, Holly Black, Cassandra Clare, all these folks, and just was amazed at how incredible YA had become since I had read To Kill a Mockingbird in the 7th grade. And
it's evolved a lot. YA has, yeah.
God, yeah. And so she shopped it. We got an auction. We got a deal. The guy who bought it, who sadly has since passed, at Simon & Schuster, is the guy who discovered Cassandra Clare, Holly Black, Scott Westerfeld, Jason Reynolds. So that we did really well with that. And there's 7 books in the series now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So have you considered branching out in other creative aspects of the written word instead of just, we went from book to film, or TV or Netflix, and choose your own adventure style, or video game, or TTRPG, tabletop RPG game.
So a couple things on that. First of all, I actually have a board game. There's a V board game called V Wars, a game of blood and betrayal, and I have lost every single time I have played it. Yeah, go. You laugh. My wife thinks it's endearing. I it's like, my son kicks my ass when we play. But the thing is, I'm not actually a gamer guy. I don't play games. My fear is that if I start playing D&D or something, I'm going to just obsess with it because it looks too much fun. I don't play video games for the same reason, but I have written a lot in the space. The people who created the Deadlands role-playing game reached out to me and asked me if I'd write a Deadlands novel, which I did, and it was the first novel associated with the game. I still didn't play the game. I just watched a lot of people play it, on YouTube videos and in different places, read the material. And more recently, Blizzard hired me to do short stories in the Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft worlds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Diablo 4 is already out. It's a free short story online, and The Toll of Darkness and Light, I think it is. And the World of Warcraft one, it'll be coming out in an anthology in a couple of months. But I, again, never played the games. I had to do a lot of research for it. So I like playing with that, doing adaptations of or story world of. As far as choose your own adventures, not really interested. I have a friend who's writing them now. Actually, a couple of friends who've written them. I write comics, so I'm already in that platform. I've been in the comics world since 2008. Started with Marvel, and I've worked a lot. In fact, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. 40% of that is based on my run on the Black Panther comic.
Nice.
I was the first one to put Shuri in the armor. I put her up against Namor back in 2009. I created the character of Anika, the woman, the Dora Milaje with the laser knives, and I created the Midnight Angels. And so all of those were in the movie. My son and I got to go to the world premiere up in LA. We got to hang out with the cast, went to the after party. Super surreal. Got photos of me taken with Dora Milaje. That's bad.
What do you do after a night like that? You're just like, hey, I'm Jonathan. I created all this stuff. I went to a world premiere. Like, do you go get burgers afterwards? Like, what do you do?
After the premiere, we went to an after party at the Roosevelt Hotel. And it was the weirdest crowd of people there. I mean, it was the cast, of course. But then you have Jim Gaffigan, Boy George, Damon John. I mean, all of these people were at the after party. And like, that's so weird. My son and I went back to the hotel because Marvel put us up at a hotel in LA. And we had two beds in the hotel room. We're sitting there on the edge of the bed, just kind of like staring. It's like, that just happened. My son was freaking out because there was Rihanna there, and I was freaking out because Angela Bassett was there.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So speaking of surreal, our comment section is probably the quietest it has been since we've ever premiered of any episode we've had. I think they're all in awe of what's going on right now. But Mike does have a question. Mike just posted. He goes, did you write any of the Alien novels that spun off from the Alien movies?
I didn't write any of the novels. However, I edited 2 anthologies, Aliens Bug Hunt, which is all colonial marine stories. And I did write a story for it because Titan and Fox insisted that I write a story for it. Usually editors don't like writing stories for their anthologies, but if the license holder insists, then yes. So I did an Alien story for Aliens Bug Hunt, and then I did a story for a Predator anthology that's my friend Brian Schmidt did, and then he and I co-edited Aliens versus Predator, Ultimate Prey, which was another anthology. And I wrote a story for that. It's an alien story, but it actually focuses a little more on the predators. If you saw the movie Predators, the third Predator movie, one with Adrian Brody,
yeah,
there's a guy in there who played a Yakuza, was played by Louis Ozawa, and he's a friend of mine. In fact, he was originally going to star in Rotten Ruin as Tom Moore, but different company had it at the time, and he's since moved on. But so he and I co-wrote a story where his character from the third movie, his younger brother, is captured and taken to the same world. He's also a Yakuza.
Oh, wow.
And so we co-wrote that together. And the character winds up teaming up with an alien for reasons that actually make sense in the story. Because usually aliens do not have any reaction to humans, but this one has a control device that causes it pain. But a predator had put in a control device that causes it pain, and this guy takes it off of the alien. So basically, not that they're not becoming friends, but they're both going to go out and hunt the predators.
Kind of like an enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Is exactly the pitch I gave. My enemy is my friend, and I had a lot of fun with that. We're talking about possibly doing another Aliens or Predator anthology, and that may happen. I don't know that I would do an alien novel, though. I have a bunch of friends who have. My buddy Scott Sigler talked him into pitching to Titan, and he did one of my favorite of the alien novels, Phalanx, which was a really, really cool book. And a bunch of other friends of mine. In fact, just about everyone who's ever written alien novels is a friend of mine.
Huh.
They're all, well, the reason is they're all in the media tie-in world. Media tie-in is when you write in other people's licenses. And I'm the president of that organization, International Association of Media Tie-in Writers. So we all know each other. And sometimes, it's one of the fun things about where I am in my career is a lot of projects come to me, a lot more projects come to me than I can take. So I often try to turf them over to a friend of mine so they get a nice deal. And, so makes it happy and it's good for the family.
I do remember either Dark Horse or DC comic versions of Aliens or Alien and Predators featuring Batman or Superman.
Yeah. Yep. They did great stuff over at Dark Horse with Aliens and Predators. Really, really great stuff.
So you mean to tell me that there is a Predator anthology out there?
Yes. It's Alien vs. Predator, Ultimate Prey. I'm just looking at it up on my shelf. And it's a lot of fun. We have, among the people who wrote for it, Stephen Sears, who was the showrunner and executive producer for Xena, Warrior Princess.
Sorry.
And,
you guys have
all of that.
And he's one of
That's
our
all she needed to hear.
we asked him, of course, and that's one of the fun things about this is being able to bring in your friends. Mm-hmm. So for the Aliens versus Predator, we have Chris Ryle, who was he created Zombies versus Robots, which was a comic years ago, and it was the creative director at IDW. Delilah Dawson, who writes Star Wars novels, did a story for us. Jess Landry, Scott Sigler, Shauna McGuire. I mean, it's one hell of a lineup. And then the Aliens Bug Hunt, it's Christopher Golden, Brian Keene, Dan Abnett, David Farland, Heather Graham. I mean, Larry Correa, Keith DeCandido. It's an incredible lineup of folks. And when almost everyone who writes that kind of stuff is a buddy, you can always stock your anthologies with real talent and really understand how to work within a license.
So for you, Alien versus Predator, who do you think would win?
Depends on the circumstance. Predators have detection, they have a camouflage, and they have weapons. And the alien is an animal. So the Predator is going to win, which is why they usually, when they put the two together, they put a lot of aliens in there. And unfortunately, the two Alien versus Predator movies are not as good as they should have been. Even the first one with Lance Henriksen, who is a guy I know and love. And in fact, he just turned 84 the other day, yesterday maybe, 84 or 82, something like that. But my favorite of the two, though, is still the Alien. I remember going to New York City from Philadelphia to see the first ever showing of Alien. A buddy of mine drove up, and we had no idea what to expect. We didn't expect what we saw. Holy crap.
I do like how Sigourney Weaver kind of became the face of, sci-fi-ish in a way as a result of that.
Yeah, and also the face of they talk about the everyman a lot, but she's the every woman. She's not a superhero. She wasn't particularly brave. She was just geared to survive.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they didn't make her until they got to Alien Resurrection, they didn't make her particularly tough. They made her just resourceful and smart.
Yeah.
And nothing appeals to me more than a smart, resourceful hero. And Sigourney was great. Absolutely great in those movies. I'm looking forward to Alien Romulus. It's coming up soon, the TV show.
Ah, yeah.
Wait, what?
There's an Alien TV show coming up.
Oh,
And a new Alien movie coming up.
I'm like, why am I feeling like I just heard about this? I didn't.
There are trailers. Go look up Alien Romulus.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to. Like, I love the Alien movies. As far as Alien and Predator movies, I like the Alien movies more. I like them all, but I'm a Predator girl. Like, well, that sounded really bad, but I like. I love the Predator.
I'm a Predator. Yeah.
I know, great.
You have to go from house to house. I'm sorry, I'm a Predator.
Exactly.
Just give me a heads up.
To let you know.
Don't worry, I'm not an alien. I'm legal.
Exactly. But no, in terms of Predator, I don't know. I feel like Predator is just badass, man. Like, every time I watch the Predator versus Alien movies, and I know it's probably unpopular opinion, I love all the movies. I will not talk bad about any of them, but I like the second one more than any of them. I don't know why. Maybe because it's like home, like small town, and I love small town feel type movies.
So, it's not that small.
Well,
Or is it LA, I think. Yeah.
no, in Alien versus Predator, was it LA?
No. The second Predator film. Oh, you're talking about the Aliens?
Oh, I'm
the
sorry. I was
Predator
talking about
one.
Alien versus Predator.
Predator movie.
I thought you were
Requiem.
talking about the second Predator film too.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're
Yeah.
talking about Predator Requiem.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of Alien versus Predator, it's the second one that I like more than the first one. I like the first one.
You are the only person in North America who likes the second Alien versus Predator.
Probably.
And I may be the only person around who likes Alien 3 like a lot.
Huh.
I thought the whole Prison Planet thing, especially the extended version with a little more dialogue and character development, great cast, great action, and Charles Dutton makes a great anti-hero. You know,
Yeah.
he's certainly not likable, but he's charismatic and powerful. You know,
Right.
And plus you had Paul McGann, the lost doctor from Doctor Who, bunch of other folks, and I thought it was a really good film that gets no love at all, which really bums me out.
Which is really bad because the idea that the alien isn't just from hominids, you know, it's from whatever it's taken over, a dog.
The dog, right? The cow version.
Yeah.
I think the reason they didn't like it is because they killed off Newton Hicks right at the beginning.
Oh.
And after all that Ripley had gone through in Aliens, which is my favorite action movie of all time, despite a huge plot hole, which bugs the shit out of me. But they had established Ripley as this she went to such great lengths to save a little girl, and the little girl just dies during the
Yeah.
You know. I understood that they couldn't get Carrie Henn to come back, but even so, recast, you know. Because it would have been cool to have her trapped on that planet and her seeing Ripley sacrifice herself, and then maybe her go on to become the next character. And I think that was their plan. But Carrie Henn wanted to go to college, wanted to pursue school, and didn't want to go to become an actress again. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh well.
So yeah.
They did do a
Yeah, I
video
mean,
game of it right after.
Recasting could have been an option, but maybe they were, because a lot of times people get, like, when they're so involved in like a franchise, they get really upset about recasting, and so it can be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and she, you know, by the time they made Alien 3, it was quite a few years after Alien. She would have been older. I was on a panel with a bunch of writers where somebody in the audience asked the question of, you know, could they recast her? And I said, there's a number of different ways they could have done it. If they'd been able to talk the actual actress into coming back, she would have been 5 years older. I think it was about 5 years. All they had to do was say that her cryotube failed and she was alone on the ship for 5 years, didn't know how to work the cryotubes to wake anyone else up, and had been playing and hiding from aliens on the ship the whole time. Would have been a great setup for a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dark Horse may have done that as a comic, if I'm not mistaken, or done something like that as one of their comic things. But no, they didn't. But I still like the movie anyway, quite a bit. And my favorite Predator films is Predators. Is the third one, Predators.
Oh, with Adrian?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I can't. I mean, you can't go wrong with Arnold on that first one. That's just classic with the whole like blood and.
That's my second favorite, and Prey is my third favorite.
Prey was really good.
I love Prey.
I was really excited about that one.
So they're talking about maybe doing one that's might be based on Scott Sigler's book Phalanx, about an alien showing up in the Roman era.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
That would be really cool, or a predator rather showing up in the Roman era.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah, and he would become like a gladiatorial champion. You know,
well, they would have had to capture him at some point then to make him a champion.
Or his ship crashed and he maybe had some damage that like he can't connect with his people, but he sees these gladiatorial combat things. And even without his high-tech armor, he'd be a pretty formidable opponent. So who would fight in an arena unarmed against a predator? I think that'd be fun as hell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That'd be really cool.
I could even see how to work that into a retelling of Spartacus.
Mm-hmm.
The predator helping Spartacus free all the slaves, and the predator basically building his own army out of humans that would follow him as the ultimate warrior.
All right. Well, we're at the birth of a new story of Jonathan right here.
I have to pitch it.
I mean, I would totally watch that movie / read that book. Like,
yeah.
I'll talk to my agent tomorrow.
Like, I was on this little podcast last night, and
it wouldn't be the first time that I've had an idea on a podcast or something else that I have pitched to my agent. So
there you go.
I was on a podcast once, I forget how many years ago, 8 years ago, and we were talking about things that are haunted that most people don't know are haunted. And this one of the questions was somebody believed in haunted tattoos, that tattoos could be haunted. Oh. And that gave me an idea for a book where a kind of vampire, if you have a tattoo that's tied to your most important memory, like as a lot of people do, if he touches the tattoo, it begins to fade on you and it appears on him, and then he gets all of the memories associated with it and feeds on them, and you lose those memories forever. So one character has the tattoo of her murdered daughter on her hand, and every day she's forgetting more and more about her daughter, to the point where she only remembers she had a daughter, but nothing else. It's creepy. And I turned it into a novel called Ink, which is my favorite single novel I've ever written.
Huh.
You know, another way of that I was thinking of was the idea that how you can, cremate bodies and stuff and turn them into diamonds or whatever, or powder that can be mixed into the ink. Mm-hmm. And now you've got somebody who is under your skin, literally.
Yeah, I
what if it's a psycho thriller type thing,
No, sure. I mean, it's no different than when they used to do movies about somebody getting the hands of a killer and something. It's that sort of thing, carrying on personality traits or unfinished business or anger or whatever from somebody else. It's now for you. It's a great seed for which you can tell a huge number of different types of stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're like going off of like Rick's thing, like where you can get like buried with like tree roots. So like you feed the tree as it's growing.
Right. Yeah.
And like, let's just create a haunted forest, which by the way, that's how I want to be handled when I die, just in case.
Yeah. Chris, I want it to be a fruit tree.
I will haunt that tree.
I want to be a fruit tree. So people eat the fruit, they get possessed by me and start doing weird things. Probably start wearing Hawaiian shirts and,
I like your style, by the way.
There was actually a history behind the Hawaiian shirts. I used to be a bodyguard years ago for 4 years or 5 years in the entertainment industry. And most of the time they had us dress like Secret Servicemen, black suits, white shirts, black ties. They liked the official looking look, wires behind the ear and all that crap. But every once in a while you had a performer who didn't want something that fancy. Like when we were working with Tom Waits, he did not want us to look like Secret Service. He wanted us to look like roadies. So we all wore Hawaiian shirts. Being baggy, if you had a sidearm on your belt, you can pull the shirt up and pull the shirt up and get the sidearm, but the shirt's so baggy you can't see the gun. So I started, we all started wearing Hawaiian shirts for those types of gigs, and I just fell in love with the look of them and the feel of them. I now have about 300. So my wife thinks I need intervention. The company that I get my Hawaiian shirts from is Big Fun Shirt Company in Eureka, California. It's a mail order company. It's a mother and son. They're about to have a sale, by the way, starting the 12th or 15th.
As Rikki takes notes.
Usually $100 a shirt. They're taking $30 off for the sale. but it's if you notice, let me tilt this down a little bit. The pocket completely vanishes into the material. The patterns go across the opening, so that you don't have mismatched patterns. The buttons are coconut. The material is first class, and they will adjust the tailoring to your size if you give them your size.
Nice.
So I have a bunch of them, and on my birthdays they usually send me a Hawaiian shirt or two for my birthday or Christmas. And I just got them the other day. And my assistant also had one made for me. She found this material that's ghouls and zombies all over it.
Oh, wow.
Since I'm going to be a guest at Bram Stoker Con at the end of this month, I will be debuting that shirt there.
Nice. I mean, that will fit in just perfectly.
Yeah. And this is one of my quieter shirts. I've got some that will actually cause retinal damage. They're so bright.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, they're offensively bright. I use those for like Comic-Con when I'm in one of those big halls where I want to be seen at the end of the hall. Well, I look like I'm on fire because I've one that's flaming pineapples, really bright red. So it's hard to not be noticed. And I had people cosplay me, which is really weird. They'll show up with fake beards that over the years have gone from brown to white now. Thank you very much. Plain shirts and jeans and usually like a coffee mug. And so they're cosplaying me. First time I saw that was this 100-pound little French woman, little tiny person with a fake beard, a V-Wars cap, a shirt that matched the one one of the ones I had, and she showed up at one of my book signings, and that was the end of all sense and order for that book signing. It just went
awesome. Really. So Bethany, remember 50th birthday coming up soon.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I know. I thought it was funny because our creator, Hadley, she's the one who created Weird Realities Network, who gave us the opportunity to make this podcast and everything. So she's the one who does all the marketing and advertising for this show. And she created some pictures and stuff that had, normally it's like Crystal and I as the blondes, and Rikki has recently become just like our he's become another host also.
Pretend this is blonde, not gray. I'm just saying.
No, you're good. You're part of it. But it's just funny because she came out with videos of Crystal and I, and she had a guy with a Hawaiian shirt. And for the longest time, I was like, is this Jonathan or Rick? Because I didn't know which one, because you both wear Hawaiian shirts.
And we are both bearded individuals.
Exactly.
It is.
It could go either way.
I'm sure Rikki knows the secret handshake for the cult. You guys don't. Just saying. You know.
Yep.
Get a wine shirt, a cup of coffee. We'll talk.
I mean, I've definitely cup of coffee. I got you. I don't have any Hawaiian shirts, but I do have some pretty loud ones.
Loud works. And by the way, we even have. This is so weird. I even have my own coffee brand now. Coffee blends, really, technically. Old Town Roasting Company in Orange County. The guy who owns it's a fan of my Joe Ledger books, and he was at one of my signings, and I was talking about the coffee, because people ask what I drink, because my characters drink coffee a lot, and they ask what I drink. And I was saying that it would be fun if I could get a Joe Ledger roast, and I was just joking, and he came up to me afterwards and said, we can make that happen. So there is a Joe Ledger bold roast, Joe Ledger's fresh cup of whoop ass. And there's also a decaf brand named after Joe's best friend who doesn't drink regular coffee. He drinks bad Starbucks blends. I mean, like the weird drinks at Starbucks. And also decaf. We call it Rudy Sanchez Brown Sadness Water Decaf.
I feel like sadness water is a good description for decaf coffee.
I originally mentioned Brown Sadness Water in a novel like 14 years ago, and now it's a meme I keep seeing pop up on the internet. So I created a meme. Yay. Credit for it.
Now you've made it. You created a meme.
Yeah,
that means you made it.
That's it. Out of all
people
the
cosplaying you, that's not the same. No.
So now having your words out on the internet, I actually have a quote that I have from you. I don't even know where it's from. It just says, I Googled Jonathan Maberry quotes, and this is what popped up, and I really liked it. But it's, if you battle monsters, you don't always become a monster, but you aren't entirely human anymore either. And I love that because I feel like that can be applied to so many aspects of life, not just supernatural and fun fanfic stuff, but just to like in general life. in terms
Yeah.
of, you know, how is that, knowing that, like you said, you had someone who cosplays you, someone who has quotes of you, things like that. How is that kind of going through life? Like, you go get your coffee in the morning and someone's like, they like quote you on something.
It's surreal as hell. The thing is, when I got into fiction, and I was 48 when I got into fiction, so I started late. When I got into fiction, I never anticipated some of the stuff that's now part of my daily life. I never anticipated certainly people cosplaying me, because that seemed like what a bizarre thing to do. I mean, there are all these good-looking actors and characters you can play. I'm a lumpy old hairy writer. Like, why would the hell do you want to cosplay me? And now it's a thing at Comic-Con and other places. People say, if you want to find Maberry, look for the big guy with the loud Hawaiian shirt. They will actually find me that way. That's weird. I didn't expect to know the writers whose books I've been reading up, until I became a professional. Like, I know Steve King, I know Dean Koontz, I know Charlene Harris. That's weird to me. I'm friends with Wayne Brady. I became friends with George Romero and Stan Lee. None of that was even on my bucket list of things I would like to happen. It was just not even a thought that would ever happen. And now it's a thing. It's such a weird thing. And also running into here's an example of how weird it can be. I was at Pensacon in Pensacola, Florida, 2 or 3 years ago. And they had a green room for all the guests. And, they had food laid out. So I was in line to get some food. And there's a guy in front of me, turns around, looks at me, and with a Northern English accent says, "You're Jonathan Maberry." And it was Christopher Eccleston, the first of Doctor Who's from 2010 or whatever it was. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? My 9 octaves. And he's like, he starts naming the books of mine he'd read. I'm like, how the fuck do you know my books? It was just so weird that somebody famous would know my works, and then recognize me, because writers aren't often getting the facial recognition.
Right.
It was just so strange. And then he's hitting me up. He said, "Look, if you have any projects coming up for a TV or film that could use a guy my age, have your people reach out, because and he's saying, at my age, you don't get as many offers." I'm like, Doctor Who is asking me for I at another event at Comic Palooza in Houston, I think it was Houston or Dallas, I was sitting at my table, and they gave me a nice little booth on a row where across from me was the entire cast of Rocky Horror Picture Shows, which was really cool. And it turned out Patricia Quinn, who played Magenta, her grandson is a huge fan of my middle grade stuff. And she came over to get books signed. And I'm like, I was in Rocky Horror play when I was younger. I played the criminologist, the only guy who does not wear the bustier. Well, thank God for that. That would cause psychological harm to everyone involved. But and then she invited me to a party for one of the other cast members, and it was the cast of Gotham, the cast of several actors from Firefly, and a whole bunch of others, all at this cast party, and me. I'm the only writer there. Everybody else is actors, and it's shit like that happens now, and I don't expect it, and my ego has not adjusted to it. My ego is still like, I'm a book nerd who got lucky. How is this even a thing in my life? But it's a thing in my life. Earlier this week, last week, I was talking to James Roday. You guys ever watch Psych?
Yeah.
The star, Psych.
Oh,
Sure.
wow. Yeah.
He and I are producing partners to try to sell. We're working on a project based on the anthology I did with George Romero. And that sentence sounds irrational to me. Because if I told my just 10 years ago, oh yeah, we're going to work with James Roday as producing partners to try to sell a TV adaptation of something I did with George Romero, I would have thought that was the punchline of some arcane joke of which I didn't understand. But it was just, that shit happens now. It's nuts. It's really nuts. I saw Mike says I would be running around asking for autographs. The one thing that we don't do in our trade is we don't do autographs like with each other. It's considered bad form within the industry, but a lot of folks ask for autographs, and I've even had people get an autograph and have it tattooed on them.
Wow.
It's like, I don't even like my books enough to do that. that's kind of weird. Another weird story about being semi-famous. My fiction career started after my first marriage ended, and it was a bad end. We it was not a good divorce. She moved to Australia, got married again, had kids, and then out of the blue, I hear from her. Her son had come home from school, and Rotten Ruin was required reading, and she didn't realize I had become a novelist. And she read the book, I think, in anger to look for another reason to hate me. She wound up apologizing for all the stuff that had happened between us, and we're now friends. And I've published some of her poetry in Weird Tales.
Oh wow!
That's really cool.
But it's such a uniquely weird thing in somebody's writing career that doesn't happen in the real world,
Yeah.
And probably my biggest single moment is not actually the most lucrative by far, but I think the moment that really rocked me years ago, probably 12 years ago, 14 years ago, I was asked to write a short story for an anthology of Wizard of Oz tales. John Joseph Adams was editing it. And, I had just finished writing the Pine Deep novels. And, so my immediate idea was Wizard of Oz. Sure, I'll have the Tin Man get the heart of a serial killer, go on a rampage with his axe. It sounds like a fun story, and I may actually write that story someday. But because that's not who reads Wizard of Oz stories, I wrote a little cute story about a little winged monkey girl whose wings were too small for her to fly. So she went and get magic traveling shoes to take her all the places her wings wouldn't take her. And even as I'm ready, I'm like, it was like so not me, Roll forward about 6 months after the book is out. I get a letter from the estate of L. Frank Baum, the guy who created Wizard of Oz. And they said that the story came to their attention. And I'm bracing, thinking, oh my God, they're going to fry me for something. And they said that they loved the story so much and that it spoke in the voice of, they said in the voice of childhood is the way they phrased it. And they added it to the official chronology of Oz. It is now and forever a prequel to The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, wow.
I ugly cried. Nope. I make no excuses. That moment was so weird for me that it began the process of me realizing I was no longer in my earlier version of the real world. I was in this world, not the book world. And the book world is very strange.
So I do have to disagree with you, though, that somebody that loves Wizard of Oz wouldn't like that Tin Man tale, because I grew up on the Wizard of Oz books. I still own every single Wizard of Oz book. Although I haven't read that story from you, but Tin Man getting a heart of a serial killer and going on a rampage, I would be there in a second.
The thing is, an adult, but the Wizard of Oz books are read by 5 and 6 year olds. So,
okay, well, maybe at 5 or 6 I wouldn't have, but at 5 and 6 I was reading scary stories to tell in the dark. So if it was a simplified version, maybe.
And something about scary stories is I was asked to edit the official tribute anthology to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Don't Turn Out the Lights. It came out 6 years ago, and that was also weird because I love those books. I mean, they came out well after I was a kid, but I love those books.
Oh my gosh, those books formed my reading for the rest of my life.
Yep. You reference those and anything by R.L. Stine so much.
Oh my gosh, R.L. Stine.
A couple things about Bob Stine. Bob's a really good friend of mine, and weirdly, you would never think it of him. He does occasional stand-up comedy in New York.
Wait, what?
If you see a photo of him, he looks like the guy that not only would you not leave your children alone at home with because they eat them. He doesn't look like he has the sense of humor he has. He's hilarious. One of the nicest guys in the world. And everyone who knows Bob loves Bob. He's that kind of a guy, But I want to tell you about a project I just did. It gives you an idea of how weird my career has gotten in that I can tap my friends for a special project. So I had an idea. There's this writers conference in Colorado Springs called Superstars Writing Seminars. And it's expensive, but it's a really good conference that focuses entirely on the business side of writing. Whether you're indie or traditional, it's all about how to maximize your career, make money, and so on. But as I said, the scholarships are expensive. So I wanted to do, I'm on faculty there now. And it was the group was founded by Kevin J. Anderson, who writes the Dune novels now, Brandon Sanderson, Jim Butcher, those are the guys who founded it. So it's a pretty high-powered group. So I decided I wanted to do a project that connects a couple of my favorite things, one of which is poetry. I love poetry. I read it aloud every day before I write. It just helps my prose a lot. And I just love poetry anyway. So I wanted to do an anthology where I would ask a bunch of my friends to pick public domain poems, classic poems that dealt with darkness in any way that can be defined, supernatural, PTSD, and anything in between, darkness. So I reached out to 90 writers I know, well, writers and creators that I know, and asked them if they would pick a poem, and then the content I would need them to write would be like 1 to 3 paragraphs of commentary about the poems. And I literally just picked the people that I know and reach out to them. The first one I reached out to was Neil Gaiman. He said yes. Bob Stein said yes. Charlene Harris said yes. Shane Black, by the way, who did Iron Man, and he was in the first Predator movie. He was the guy with the glasses, white glasses. Yeah. And he wrote Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and just tons of other stuff. He said yes. 2 of my friends who were actresses on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Amber Benson and Charisma Carpenter, yes. I mean, just Harold Perrineau, who was on Lost, who now stars on the scariest show on television, From. If you haven't seen it, it is the best show.
So good.
3. So he's a friend, and he said yes. So we got all these people, and I got 4 healthcare professionals to write essays on darkness. And that everyone, we all did it for free. The publisher is putting it out for free. They're not charging, they're eating all the costs. And then all the money we make from it will be used to fund scholarships. So it's a win-win all the way. But I couldn't have done that 6 years ago. Now it's, let me send a text message to Neil. And Neil's like, fuck yeah. Let me send a message to Bob Stein. And Bob's like, fuck yeah. Which, by the way, is the most common answer I got.
Nice.
So it's a fun world to be in. It really is. And the comics part is a lot of fun. I did a Godzilla versus Cthulhu comic recently. It'll be out soon. That was one of those, I would have paid them to do it because it's such a cool idea, Godzilla versus Cthulhu.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Well, they paid me, so yes, I cashed the check.
And you do have bills to pay.
Yeah.
Southern California is a pricey little place to live.
Nuclear or eldritch horror?
Now, one thing I like that you do, that you post a lot, is you like to, in the mornings, go out to the beach, right? And go get like a nice view of the beach, and that kind of like sets your tone. And I appreciate you. I mean, being here in Arizona where we do not have beachfront property at all, we appreciate the photos that you post.
I grew up in Philadelphia where we had 0 beach views. Mm-hmm. Most of I grew up in a really bad part of Philadelphia where it was basically gun violence and drugs and domestic violence. It was a really charming place to be from. Place that would be really, really improved by a low-yield nuclear device being dropped right on it. But so when I moved out to California, I wanted to get as far away from Philadelphia as I can. And literally, if I moved any further west, I'd be swimming. So we're right there at the water. And I get up around, 5. So I'm at the beach by dawn every day. And man, what a beautiful way to start my day. And I go up and meditate. I go through all the things I'm grateful for, because there's a lot of things and people I'm grateful for. And also, I often read my poetry out there. Granted, my audience are whales, dolphins, and seals, but I'm sure they appreciate the poetry.
Thanks for all the fish.
Yeah, thanks for. And then I go home and write, and among the things I'm grateful for is help I got along the way. And that's a big thing. When I was 12, I went to middle school. My middle school librarian was the secretary for 2 different groups of professional writers. The Philadelphia group was all the epic fantasy writers, Sprague de Camp and all those guys. The New York group were basically, when there were enough genre writers in New York City, this publisher would throw a penthouse party. And this is 1970, so back then, if you were any kind of a successful writer, you went to New York to launch your books. It was the thing back then. And she took me up there, and the first time I was there, I met Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, and Harlan Ellison.
Cool.
And Bradbury and Matheson became mentors of mine for 3 years, for no reason other than the fact that they saw a kid who was serious about being a writer. It put no money in their pocket, didn't sell any extra copies of their books. Generosity of spirit. And I've met people along the way who have demonstrated that kind of honest generosity of spirit, and it's something to aspire to. Bradbury gave me his 10 commandments of how to be a great writer. Commandment 1, don't be a jackass. Commandment 2, don't be a jackass, and so on. And that turns out it applies to a lot of aspects of life. To be part of helping people move along. I do the Writers Coffee House, which is a free networking thing for writers. We have this all over the country now. I visit a lot of writers groups trying to help people get ahead, because I got help, and we should all be helping one another in this field. It's a tough field. We know it's tough. So instead of focusing on the tough stuff, maybe we can talk about what you can do to get ahead. And actually, if people go to my, see if I can click into the chat thing here.
You have a master class and such, I remember.
Well, not just that. I have on my website. If you go to my website, jonathanmaberry.com, there's one of the sub pages is called Free Stuff for Writers. It has everything from a query letter to a comic book script to all sorts of just useful free stuff that writers can download and use. Stuff like that. My buddy Chuck Wendig does the same stuff. He has a lot of free stuff up on his website. Mm-hmm. Those of us who had help along the way and don't think that people helped us because we were all that. People helped us because they were generous of spirit, of nature. We want to try to keep that energy going and see it spread out throughout the community. Rather than writers be afraid of one another or backstab one another, to actually try to help one another. And it makes it a hell of a lot more fun, too. Because it's all one big party that way.
Now, leading off with that, a lot of our followers and a lot of people part of the Weird Reality, they're all, indie authors. Some of them are doing very well. Rikki and I were just newbies. But what is some kind of do you have any advice or any type of inspiration you want to pass along to any of the people listening?
Writers in general.
Huh?
For specifically indie or writers in general?
I would just say writers in general, because a lot of them kind of go across all platforms.
Yeah, and I haven't really done indie work, but I have a lot of friends who are indie and a lot of friends who are hybrid, who do a little both. Scott Sigler, for example, #1 international bestseller for his weird science and horror thrillers. He also self-publishes the Galactic Football League books, which are fantastic. I don't even like football, and I enjoy the books. But as far as writing advice goes, there's a couple of things. One, people will try to talk you out of it, and don't let them. They'll tell you it's tough. No shit. Of course it's tough. Any creative field is tough. They'll tell you it's competitive, and it's not. It's competitive if you think that the number of opportunities are finite, and they're not. Publishing is always looking for new talent. Always, 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 always. Indie or traditional, they're looking for new talent. What they need is a good book. So learn your craft. Don't rely on your natural storytelling gifts exclusively. Learn the elements of craft, because the more you learn the elements of pace, voice, point of view, figurative and descriptive language, etc., you can then manipulate your storytelling gifts into something that becomes, literature, that becomes something that will shine brighter than somebody who's not doing that extra work to learn those skills. Also, don't take any project or write any project that isn't going to be fun, because if fun is not part of your business plan, you are doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, we know it's hard. I'm not saying it's not. But if you're having fun, the hard is like hard the way a video game is hard. You just want to level up. You want to get to this point and then see what the next set of challenges are and make it a game rather than making it a struggle. Also, spend time with other writers. The more you talk to other writers, the less alone you'll feel, because a lot of the things that we feel individually, imposter syndrome, the myth of writer's block. There's no such thing as writer's block. I can explain that if you want. But all these challenges that we face rejection letters and so on. It isn't just us. Everyone is doing that. Everyone is facing those same problems. So why not talk to each other and see if there's maybe solutions? Just because you don't know the answer to how to tackle some problem doesn't mean the answer doesn't exist. Usually, and that's why I talk about writer's block, that's an umbrella term that covers a lot of different challenges. But every one of those challenges has been defeated multiple times by different people. If you talk to enough writers, you will find those answers. And if you want to go indie, I certainly have no stones to throw in indie. If you want to go indie, though, take the extra time, show the extra respect for the readers by making sure the book is as polished, as nicely edited, as nicely formatted, with as good a cover as you can. Give them a product worthy of the money they pay and the time they invest. And as far as funny thing about indies, it used to be looked down on completely, not really anymore. I mean, not after The Martian, which was an indie, self-published novel. Wool by Hugh Howey, which is the #1 show on AMC right now, was a self-published novel, etc. Write the book you're passionate about. And I'll actually give you one quote to end that question. Something Ray Bradbury told me. Bradbury said, I think it was 13, he said, don't just write the novel that you want to read, which is a lot of what they tell us. Write the book you would want to read. He said, write the book that you would hunt down and find no matter where it is and buy it. That's the book to write. The one that you're that passionate about. You go the extra mile to find it. Well, go let that passion shine through in your writing. Because if you are truly that passionate about your work, no matter how dark the subject matter, that joy of the process of writing, of storytelling, will shine through, and it will make your book come alive. And I totally agree with that.
Well, yeah.
Pretty awesome.
I'm like, I don't have anything else to say after that. Sorry.
What's your favorite color?
Right? I was going to say, what's your favorite Mexican food? But okay.
Tacos.
There you go. Can't go wrong with that.
Actually, here in San Diego, we have the best fish tacos.
Yeah.
So it's the craft beer capital of the world, San Diego. There's a lot of reasons to live here, aside from the whales, dolphins, and seals. But I'm a big fish taco guy. I remember when I went back to Philadelphia for the first time after living in San Diego and ordered fish tacos, I got Gorton's fish sticks on a crunchy taco shell.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
In San Diego, if it's on the menu, it was swimming within the last 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think about breading fish out here. No, it's grilled or raw, depending on what you want. And there's usually about 20 different types of fish you can get. And big fan.
Well, that's like if we go anywhere besides Arizona for some really good Mexican food sometimes. San Diego's got some good Mexican food, though.
We are. Where I'm sitting right now, I am 20 miles from the border of Mexico.
Yeah.
A lot of really great Mexican cooks out here.
Yep.
Well, that just reminded me of because I went to school in Ohio, and there was it was a really small town, and there was one Mexican restaurant other than Taco Bell. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go try it. It's probably not going to be that great.
Mexican restaurant.
Well, Taco Bell was better than this Mexican restaurant.
Oh, damn.
I remember, the one time I went there, I was like, well, I should give it a chance. I went there, and the salsa was, if you're going to make spaghetti sauce and you buy, it's just it's not seasoned or anything, but it's just basically pureed tomato. That's exactly what it was.
I have had in Nebraska. I had that, and it was basically with chunks of pepper and onion in it.
There wasn't even that in this place. It was just smooth. So I was like, so for 4 years, if I wanted Mexican, it was nothing but Taco Bell.
Yikes. I believe that qualifies you for handicap plates.
It should.
A double decker or nothing.
Yeah. I actually love Arizona. I have sisters who live in Phoenix for some reason because it's hotter than the surface of the sun. I actually got an email once from my sister years ago, and I was asking her, we were having hot weather, and she said, it's so hot right here in Phoenix right now that even the scorpions are getting cranky. Now, I would have thought as a species, they're a naturally cranky creature anyway.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that asphalt gets much hotter than the air temperature, like 10, 20 degrees hotter.
Mhm.
So when something as cranky as a scorpion, which has remained unchanged for 200 million years, is so hot that it begins acting up, why are you living there voluntarily? I mean, unless you're in witness protection, Tucson's a little saner. I like Tucson a lot. Where are you guys?
Rat.
We're in Tucson. Yeah.
Tucson? I love Tucson.
Because Arizona is in competition with Australia as to what's going to kill you and how.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with everything in Arizona. I've dealt with a scorpion bite. I've dealt with all that stuff. Australia has spiders that are like that big, and that can stay there.
Yeah.
Letters.
I actually might be going to a Comic-Con in Sydney, and I don't intend to leave either the hotel or the town of Sydney. I have no interest in going to the outback and finding out what's going to kill me. I mean, where I live now, we have scorpions, we have rattlesnakes, we have brown recluses, brown widows, black widows, mountain lion. We had a mountain lion in our parking lot a couple of times. I didn't know there were mountains in San Diego until there was one walking in our parking lot. I'm like, well, that's interesting. We have a tasty dog we're not going to take outside right now.
Yeah.
We have 2 packs of warring coyotes. So
Warring coyotes?
yes, they're constantly fighting and yelling, and they sound like children screaming, which is really disturbing. And then occasionally the mountain lion will go kill one of them and eat it and leave its body around.
Oh, there you go.
That's always fun,
2 months ago, mountain lion actually attacked 2 brothers, 2 teenage brothers, killed one and almost killed the other. It's like,
Oh, wow.
that's cranky.
I think the
cranky.
most dangerous thing we have here, where I'm at now, is nothing. Although they're bringing some grizzlies back to the North Cascades.
That's good.
Yeah.
There you
People don't realize grizzlies and wolves are good for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Well, they introduced them into Yellowstone.
Right, because without the wolves, the elk population gets so overpopulated, they eat all of the plant life around in the forested areas, especially around the streams, which smaller animals rely on. And, it starts breaking down the levels of what can possibly live there. Reintroduce the wolves, they control the elk population, things go back into balance. Same with bears.
Mm-hmm.
I again, going back to something I said before the show started, I like animals more than I like people. So they can repopulate every animal as far as I'm concerned. And
there's definitely some people that are not super happy about the grizzlies coming back, and they're going to do it slowly over time. And I'm like, the grizzlies were here first, like
for quite a long time before us.
Yeah, they should bring them back. Let the grizzlies be here.
I have a buddy who's a molecular biologist. He's actually my mad scientist I tap for information for a lot of my books. And that's funny. Mike Lewis just said that's because the Sasquatch ate the grizzlies. But he's working on one of the projects he's working on is cloning the white rhino to keep it from extinction, because it's down to like a couple of them left.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be able to do that and bring the species back. Because nature didn't select them for extinction. We hunted them to extinction.
Yeah.
I don't want them to bring back dinosaurs, as cool as that would be. I don't want them to bring back giant tree sloths that weigh 4,000 pounds. Bring back the stuff that we killed.
Yeah.
The quagga, whatever.
Yeah, so that nature can find its balance again.
Yeah, I mean, we've in the past 100 years, how many animals have we made go extinct just because we're people and horrible?
I think one a week, an animal species or insect species goes extinct because of us. Mike said they're bringing back the Tasmanian tiger. They are, and a bunch of other things. And I know one group of molecular biologists who are trying to get funding to bring back Neanderthals, and I'm like, why? Why would you want to do that?
Why do you want a competitive species at the same time? That was the reason why we won that one out.
Think how lonely and desperate they would be isolated examples as a science experiment. I mean, yes, you could educate them and so on, but they would still not be human. They would be human. They would not be Homo sapiens. It's just such a terrible idea. Dungeon Dan said, "What do you think about the idea of bringing back the mammoth?" Absolutely, bring back the mammoth. There are lots of places in northern United States and Canada where there's big forests. Mammoths could, could roam.
This is pure mammoth wool. We sheared it from them earlier today.
Yeah. It is weird though that certain native indigenous peoples have paintings and art of things like mammoths, and that shouldn't be possible, but it is, and it's really strange. Or even some of the cryptids, the buffalo god, I forget which, Montana possibly. There's a thing called the buffalo god, and they must have created the god image either from legends handed down or from skeletons they found, because there's nothing like an elephant. I mean, an elephant skeleton, a mammoth skeleton, it's going to look weird. And if there's any of the fur left or the hair left, you could make a case that it's some sort of a gigantic buffalo thingy. Cool. Bring it back. Bring back the carrot pigeon.
What I thought was funny was here in Tucson. Well, I guess not funny, but they actually in Catalina State Park, they had reintroduced the bighorn sheep because there wasn't, they had all died out. But we had mountain lions there, and they were confused at first because the bighorn sheep kept disappearing because the mountain lions were eating them, and it was just like a great circle thing that they couldn't figure out. And we're like, well, it's basically door dashing right now for mountain lions. So I think there's still some sheep, but I don't know how well they're doing.
Oops.
Yeah. The predators are still going to do their thing when you're reintroducing animals that are not predators.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it's like that Chris Rock thing that when the tiger bit. I forget which one it was. One of the two Vegas guys who were
Roy.
Roy. Yeah. And people were saying the tiger went crazy, and Chris Rock pointed out, no, the tiger went tiger.
Yeah.
It's doing what a tiger does. The whip and chair thing. It's not something the tiger's normally, going to abide. And he went little tiger.
Little tiger.
A little.
I don't blame the tiger at all.
No.
So when the predator species introduce the alien species to a world, for when they're setting up their hunting game, and then they leave, and then they come back later on, or these aliens are just there. Whatever hasn't been decimated have started repopulating, or maybe they have to bring them back a little bit. Maybe reclone them or something. Because they were probably there before. What other life form decided to spring up afterwards and stuff?
Oh, I want to do a story at some point where they seed Earth during the Jurassic period, and I would love to see alien versions of basically any kind of a dinosaur, velociraptors, Deinonychus. Actually, an ankylosaur alien would be so cool. God, I need to pitch that.
I feel like a brontosaurus needs to have some type of representation there.
Is that a Bigfoot statue behind you?
Yes.
Yes. You are the first person to point it out.
It's the classic Bigfoot move,
Yeah. He's actually kind of in each of our films or each of our things.
Yeah, it took me a few episodes to realize that there was a Bigfoot behind Rick at all times.
It likes to move. It moves around.
Bethany, I think we have the same picture on the wall. Is that a dragon flying over a forest behind you?
The picture behind my... Oh, wait. This one?
Yeah.
Or that one?
The black and white one over your left shoulder.
My left.
Yes, that one.
This
one?
That one.
Oh, that's Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Oh, because I have one...
Oh, nice.
They definitely look very similar.
No, this is a Harry Potter puzzle that my stepkids got us. And then this one over here is actually Isla Nublar from Jurassic Park.
Oh, nice. The map, yeah.
Yep.
The reason it looks so much like the dragon painting, I bought that at a little convention because I have after Necrotech, the next book I have coming out is the third of my epic fantasy series, and it's called The Dragon in Winter. And the scene, this scene looks exactly like one of the scenes from the book. The dragon flying over the forest. It's like right out of the last act of that book. And it's so weird that I was walking by and the guy had just put that piece of art out. It's like it literally came out of my brain. It's such a unique thing to see. So.
Well, I was trying to figure out the book that's behind you that's kind of facing out.
Conan the Wanderer.
I thought it was Conan. I'm like, is that a Conan book?
Very first book. The very first book I ever bought with my own money was Conan the Wanderer.
My
Nice.
Rick and I were brother sister, and our dad actually had all the Conan series in our garage, and we would always go out in the garage and read the Conan series.
Here, if you want to know more of the weird coincidences stuff. So when I was a kid, I mentioned that there was 2 clubs of writers. One of them was the epic fantasy. Well, the Conan stories, that book is co-written by L. Sprague de Camp, who became a lifelong friend and mentor. And it wasn't how I found about Conan. I just saw Conan in a bookstore. I was, I don't know, 8, 9, something like that. I saw the book and I just grabbed it. Didn't realize it was part of a series until I got it. So roll forward to 1998, and I had the woman who I'm now married to had come over to my apartment. We're sitting there talking and dragged out some photo albums. She was looking, we're looking at some of my photos, and there's a photo of me standing with Sprague de Camp. And she's like, "Why are you standing with Uncle Sprague?" And it turned out it wasn't her blood uncle. He was her grandfather's best friend, and her grandfather was the agent for Robert E. Howard.
Oh,
So he was the one that gave the unfinished Conan manuscripts to Sprague de Camp and said, maybe you could do something with this and kind of bring Conan back. Because after the original author committed suicide in the 30s, Conan just kind of disappeared until the 60s or late 50s. And he brought Conan back. And it was Sprague who also introduced me to Weird Tales magazine and H.P. Lovecraft. And now I'm the editor of Weird Tales magazine. And the first novel in the Weird Tales imprint is a Lovecraftian horror story.
oh, that's awesome.
Weird chain of connections in there,
Yeah.
We also found out that my great-grandfather captured her great-grandfather at the Battle of Gettysburg.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
What are the odds, right?
Yeah.
My life has been full of bizarre coincidences. Some good, some bad, but always bizarre.
That's the Hatfields and McCoys right there, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right?
So, well, I got a buzz soon, guys. This is I could talk to you guys all night. You guys are fun.
Well,
Like we normally do like an hour show, but we just kind of let you keep going because we're like, this is fun.
Yeah. We just,
People usually throw a chair at me to shut me up. But next time I'm in Tucson, let's get together for a couple beers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and s'mores.
And
Yes.
s'mores. All right.
Well, then to have you guys introduce me to s'mores, which I have never had. So
We'll be definitely down for that. But thank you so much for joining us.
this was more fun than I've had in a long time. So thank you very much.
oh,
And and thanks to you guys for joining in and posting some questions and having some fun with us. So thanks, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll definitely hit you up next time you come into Tucson, probably for the Festival of Books. Hopefully you normally come there.
Every year, I'm there for that. And so is Bob Stein, by the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw him last time.
Yeah.
So,
All right, guys. Well, again, thanks, and don't let the cryptids bite you. And I'll catch you guys soon.
all right. Thank you.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.